Square Enix is hosting a mega sale right now over on Steam for the TGS sale up until the 30th of September. And I'm here to let you guys know what the real deals are and which games I would recommend to you, even if you're very well acquainted with Square Enix games, because I've played the vast majority of what's here, and I'd love to share my thoughts on what I think you'd love too. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. We're kicking off with NieR Automata. Now, at $11.99, if you haven't played NieR Automata, this honestly should be the first thing you even look at. It's just one of the best games of its generation. It still holds up well to this day. It's still referred to in popular culture regularly to be turns up in everything these days, and there's good reason for that. And at $11.99, you can't go wrong with that. Obviously, all of the prices that I'm talking about here are in pounds. I should clarify that. So obviously not all prices are necessarily going to be the same across the board. But at 60% off $11.99, it's actually the lowest price it's ever had over on Steam. So this is a steal. You'll get tons of hours of content out of this. Playing through the game once does not play through the game fully. The music, the visuals, everything about this game is phenomenal. And I can't recommend it enough. So the second game on this list is a bit of a hot take, because I actually wouldn't recommend Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade on Steam at this point in time. And there is reasons for that. I think the fact that Rebirth is not yet available on Steam and is inevitably going to end up on the platform, or at least you'd hope so given that Part 1 is on here of the FF7 Remake trilogy, they're going to re-release Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade at a lower price than if you paid for it now. That's not to say it's not an incredible game and you'd be wasting your money on it, because you wouldn't. It's a fantastic game and probably one of the best games that Square's made in many, many years. But I think that if you're willing to hold out until Rebirth inevitably comes to the platform, you'll get yourself a better deal that way. Now, I'm not going to go through every single game individually, but obviously these first few are big hitters in the franchises that Square's most well known for. NieR Replicant at £20, and again, this is all in pounds, so its conversion rate's going to be all over the place. But this is the lowest recorded price so far on Steam, at least as according to SteamDB.com, which is a website I highly recommend to people if they haven't seen it already. It will give you a rundown of where things have been priced, how much they're priced at, and whether it's the lowest price they've had so far. NieR Replicant is still a really, really good game, but I would only buy this if you hadn't already played, if you've already played NieR Automata. If you haven't played NieR Automata, it's cheaper, it's nearly half the price. I personally think it's a better game, although there are people that will argue that it's not. And I think you'll get a lot more bang for your buck with Automata, and if you find that you take an interest in the NieR universe through that, then I would very much suggest Replicant. But I would suggest it if you've already picked up Automata first. Next up we have Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. If you've never played Crisis Core before, at $19.99, I think that's a good deal for it, and especially if you're playing it on Steam Deck. The reason I say Steam Deck specifically is because it's very much a game that's designed as a handheld experience. If you've not played it before, a lot of the mission structure within Crisis Core is meant to be done in half-hour, hour-long chunks. You've got to remember it used to be a PSP game originally, so to kind of carry that sort of handheld experience over into the Steam Deck really suits the game very well. If you're playing it on your desktop PC, it's still really good, and I wouldn't say it was, again, a waste of your money. But I think there are other things on the sale that I would pick before I picked Crisis Core. So going over the sort of whole Final Fantasy little bubble that we have here, there's some really good offers here, but there are some things I wanted to point out specifically. Predominantly with regards to Final Fantasy VIII. It's 60% off down to $3.99, which sounds incredible, but it's important to remember that this is not the remastered version of Final Fantasy VIII. The Final Fantasy VIII Remaster is still full price at $15.99, so just bear that in mind. However, the original version, there's mods out there for it, and there's things like that that you could do to play with it if you want that original experience. I think the remastered version is better in pretty much every way, but if you want something nice and cheap to experience FF8, this isn't a complete waste. FF7 and 9, however, I would look into. And the main reason I'd look into them, certainly at the prices they're at, is because of modifiers and things like that that you can only really do through the PC versions. If you've looked into the 7th Heaven mod for Final Fantasy VII, or the Moguri mod that I spoke about fairly recently in a video for Final Fantasy IX, this is a perfect opportunity for you to pick those up. And they're like really cheap right now, so I definitely suggest it. When it comes to some of the other titles, I honestly wouldn't suggest picking up Dissidia NT, for example, because realistically, people just aren't playing it. It's one of the few platinums I don't have for Final Fantasy on the PlayStation, and that's largely because I can never find anybody to play it with. And that's going to be the same case when it comes to PC. So while I don't think it's as bad a game as other people seem to at the time, I probably wouldn't suggest picking it up even though it's on a really good deal. Type 0 I would treat very similarly to Crisis Core and say that it's a really good handheld experience, so perfect for your Steam Deck if you've got one. And Stranger of Paradise is at a really good price for what it is, although it's important to remember it doesn't come with its DLC, but that is itself also on offer for $5.99. So you're getting the complete experience for like less than £25, or I think it equates to like maybe $30. So I would definitely suggest Stranger of Paradise, and I'm honestly surprised that hasn't had a little bit more of a highlight with regards to the more modern Final Fantasy games, because it's actually really good. Dragon Quest wise, I think that there's one game on this particular list that I would pick, and there are others that I wouldn't. Dragon Quest Builders 2 is a really good game, and at $19.99 it's a solid price for it. It's what you get when you cross Dragon Quest with Minecraft, and you get a lot of player agency, but there's also a path to follow, which is something I always personally struggled with when it came to Minecraft, because there's no direction when it comes to that, whereas Dragon Quest Builders has a story, has, like as I say, a path to follow, objectives to complete, etc. And I think it's a straight upgrade over the original Dragon Quest Builders. Okay, now we're talking. Star Ocean Second Story R specifically, I would absolutely recommend at 30% off. Star Ocean Second Story R is one of the games that I enjoyed most from 2023. I loved it. I thought that it really captured the old school feel of a JRPG that I once loved, like that PS1 style, because it's a remake of a PS1 game, but it's done in such a way that it brings everything into the modern era. It's got a lot of quality of life changes. Its visual overhaul is extremely impressive. And to be honest with you, of all of the Star Ocean games here, it's the one I'd say was the best bang for your buck. What it calls here is turn-based, so you have Chrono Trigger, which, as we all know, is one of the most celebrated RPGs ever. And at $5.99, it's not bad, but again, it's important to remember that this is the Steam/mobile version of Chrono Trigger, so I'm not sure I would recommend this version of the game. I think there are better ways to play Chrono Trigger. If you're lucky enough to have access to the DS version of Chrono Trigger, I think that's probably the best version of it because it has expanded content. Or if you have ways of playing the Super Nintendo version, I actually think it looks nicer than Chrono Trigger on Steam. So if you have access to those through whatever means you have them, then I'd suggest playing those instead. However, I would very highly recommend Live Alive. At $15.99, lowest price it's ever had. Played through this twice. It's got the HD 2D style of Octopath Traveler and Dragon Quest HD 2D that's coming out in November. And I think that for $15.99, if you want to explore a game that has that styling, but don't want to like spend too much doing it, I think you get a lot out of Live Alive. Now, in the story-driven section, there are two games here that I actually would recommend very heavily. The first of which being Chrono Cross. At £7.99, they patched the original release of this because it didn't run particularly well when it was first released, but it runs a lot better than it did now. So it has mixed reviews for Steam reviews, but I think that if you're willing to kind of dial back the hours and go back in time to an era of the PS1, then you'll really enjoy Chrono Cross. The other one that I really think is very good here is Harvestella. $24.99 I think is a bargain for this game. Like, it's actually one of the most underrated games that Square's released in a really long time. Harvestella is like a farming simulator combined with a JRPG. So if you think Rune Factory or stuff like that, it's got similar vibes to it, but it's got quite a cohesive story. The visuals on it, particularly on a Steam Deck, are stunning. It's a really strong game, so this is definitely one that I would put near the top of my list for ones for people to check out during this sale. NieR World Ends With You, I love the original World Ends With You, and I just couldn't connect with this. Other people might feel differently, and at 60% off for $19.99, maybe it's something you'd like to explore if you like the first one. With regards to the list of games that's there, or the all games list here, I'm actually more surprised by certain games that aren't on this list more than the ones that are. For example, the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters aren't here. I've already discussed things like Dragon Quest XI's that are not on here, that is very odd. But I definitely keep an eye out for those games going on sale in the future because they're very much worth your money. And the last thing I do want to say, actually, is that some of these little deals at the bottom here, I want you to be very, very careful of. because there are some amazing games on here, namely Octopath Traveler and Bravely Default 2 and Triangle Strategy, but they're not actually on sale. What's on sale here is Various Daylife, which was a little bit of a throw-out title that came out a couple of years ago, and it just kind of didn't really go anywhere. But if you actually look at the bundle here for Bravely Default is still at full price, whereas Various Daylife is $9.99, and then an extra 10% off is taken from the bundle. So you get a tiny discount on Bravely Default 2, but quite honestly, I would just wait for these games to go on sale, because they have been on sale before, and they almost certainly will do again. But these are not the places in which you want to be buying those games. All in all, if you were to buy 5 games from this list, or if you had a certain budget that you want to spend, I'd say that my recommendations to you, given the prices that they've been at previously and the fact that they're at their lowest prices now and the conversion of price to quality of game, I would suggest NieR Automata first, NieR Replicant if you've already played Automata and not Replicant, Harvestella, 100%. Harvestella is really, really good. Star Ocean Second Story R, absolutely. That game may get cheaper later, but I think that game is worth its value at full price, and it being 30% off right now, 100% recommend that. Live Alive, I'd say, is a really good price for what you're getting from it, and is a really good way to dip your toe in the waters for any HD 2D content. And if you're looking forward to things like Dragon Quest 3, then you might want to look at Live Alive as well. Stranger Paradise would be my 5th pick, actually. Like, I think for the price it's at the lowest price it's ever been at on Steam. It does work on Steam Deck. It does work really well if you've got a really good PC to really get the most out of it. And it's a very fun Final Fantasy action game. It doesn't take itself super seriously, and that's quite nice to see, so I definitely recommend that. If you wanted a last sort of like thing to spend like a $5 on, if you're not sure, then I'd say any of the classic Final Fantasy. So 7, 8, 9, 12 if you wanted to go in for that one. I'm actually surprised that 10 and 10.2 HD Remaster isn't on the list, because otherwise I'd have said that as well. But yeah, I would say that those were the picks that I would recommend to you as a consumer for the prices they're at right now. I hope that this has been helpful for you guys, and if you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments below, because finding things on PlayStation Store, Switch Store, Steam sales, all things like that, I actually really enjoy just going through the store and finding the best bargains when it comes to JRPGs and getting the most bang for your buck. So let me know if you enjoy this, and I'll make more stuff like this. And if you're not sure what to comment, just type the word algorithm into the comments, because it's really helpful to me as a content creator, and we're always trying to grow as best we can in life and as people on the internet. If you have enjoyed what you've seen here today, then consider leaving a like or subscribing to the channel. And if you want to support the channel further, then consider checking out my Etsy store in the links down below for art prints of handmade art that I do for various different video game characters, which I'm planning on taking on the road soon to go to various conventions and stuff, because it's something I feel very, very passionate about, and I'd love to share that with you. Or you can join up on the Patreon in my link in the description box below, where you get early access videos, art prints sent to you, all sorts of other things as well. But with that, I shall love you and leave you there. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.